for the party that have love and unity. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that will bring back the ante. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that have love and unity. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that will bring back the ante. On election day, we vote in UNC.
Anti-Kamla, they're not going back. PNM at a crack. 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 They bully we for 10 whole years. They mash up we foreign affairs. They had the whole country living in fear. And now they want we put them back for 5 more years. They're not going back. PNM at a crack. 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 We fed up on them. We fed up on them. Vote out the PNM. We fed up on them. When UNC win, everybody win. When UNC win, everybody win. Tell them they're not going back. PNM at a crack. They're not going back. PNM at a crack. Like it takes your Negonians for clown. Your leader stepped down cause he lost the ground. And down we throat, you pushed out young. On April 28th, we taking back sweet tongue. They're not going back. PNM at a crack. 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 We fed up on them. We fed up on them. Vote out the PNM. We fed up on them. When UNC win, everybody win. When UNC win, everybody win. Tell them they're not going back. PNM at a crack. 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 When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins, everybody wins. Vote for peace, vote for love, vote for hope, vote for change. When UNC wins, everybody wins. When UNC wins, Trinbago wins, Trinbago wins. Everybody wins.
Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that have love and unity. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that have love and unity. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that can help you and me. Yeah. All again. Boy. Oh yeah. Tell them. Vote for the right party that will help out our country. Create a better future for we family. On election day, remember what I say. We don't have time to play. UNC all the way. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that have love and unity. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that can help you and me. Vote if you're voting. Vote if you're voting. We voting, we voting, we voting UNC. We voting, we voting, we voting UNC. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that have love and unity. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that will bring back the ante. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that have love and unity. Everybody voting now, voting UNC. Voting for the party that will bring back the ante. On election day, we vote in UNC.
Here, empowerment and reform of the nation. UNC family, St. Augustine, please put your hands together. Make some noise. This breath of political fresh air. Welcome the UNC candidate for Aruka Latino, Dr. Chaitan Maharaj.
Great leaders are defined not by their words alone, but by their unwavering commitment to change. Our honorable leader, Ms. Kamla Prasad-Bissessa, UNC National Executive, MPs, senators, fellow nominees, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, good evening.
Good evening!
For the past 15 years, I have dedicated my life to healing and helping, first as a doctor and now as your UNC candidate. I continue that mission for my children, for my hardworking mothers like me, for the youth who have seen their dreams taken away. Now, I'm a gynecologist, but I want to ask you a psychiatry question. What is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Keeping this joke of a PNM government in power over and over and expecting this country to improve, that is insanity.
That's right, that's right.
UNC will stop the insanity and make things make sense. I work in the healthcare system. I see the suffering. Operating theaters left without essential equipment, like the right size glove for a surgeon to operate. Patients wait days in overcrowded emergency rooms for a bed. They wait weeks for critical scans and tests. They wait months for clinic appointments. Not enough doctors, not enough nurses. Healthcare under the PNM, that is insanity. Let me tell you a story. We had our cottage meeting in Brazil on Monday night with 100 times more people than that funeral service they had on Sunday. I went to that cottage meeting with my wonderful campaign team and constituents. Aruka Lopino, let me hear you. One of my youth supporters is epileptic and suffered a seizure in the middle of the cottage meeting. Later, as the ambulance took to the hospital, I learned the true story. You know who was to blame? The PNM is fully to blame for what happened to my youth supporter, because he could not get his meds properly filled off the CDAP prescription form. Our honorable leader, Mrs. Kamla Prasad-Bissessa, has already laid out our plan for healthcare, including making sure CDAP has all the medications my youth supporter needed on Monday night, and new ones to manage the disease better. Our leader and next Prime Minister
That's right.
has always showed a vested interest in our youth. The young people of the East-West Corridor and this whole country deserve better than this last decade of darkness. I urge our nation's youth, our Gen Z, vote to stop the insanity by dipping your finger for the UNC on April 28th. Go and tell the PNM, no more, vote them out. Under the PNM, we watched opportunity after opportunity for our youth disappear. The GATE program, for instance. Once, university education was within reach for many youths like me. I am living proof of what investment in education can do. Now, GATE has been slashed, funding decreased, more courses removed, more restrictions placed. Where once the UNC made education possible, under the PNM it is priced out of reach. Even university graduates, imagine this is where we reach. A graduated doctor in this country can't find a job? We rarely reach. Make it make sense. Another major issue our young people face is the loss of opportunities for entrepreneurship. Once upon a time, if a young person had a dream of starting a business, There were government grants available to get them started. The Enterprise Investment Fund is an example that has been reduced and then discontinued. When we return to government, we will reinstate meaningful support for our entrepreneurs.
Okay, welcome everyone. You guys are hearing me. Check in to see if you hearing me. Can you? I think I'm pretty much on here. So, welcome to the program. This is in reference to the border closure, and the person who is running for prime minister was the mastermind and very instrumental and very stringent and harsh on our people locked out outside by him and the government of Trinidad and Tobago that he's part of. And apparently, a couple of my guests didn't make it tonight, but I just wanted to raise the idea. This is the fifth year, March 22nd, made it 5 years when our people was locked out outside the country. Um, I was very instrumental in assisting them to who were stuck outside to get back home to facilitate their needs as much as I can with the help of a lot of people. We had formed a WhatsApp group that one thing led to the other. Just helping one person, and by word of mouth, uh, the message spread. And it is mind-boggling to see this individual that is running for prime minister uh, in this stage and applying himself for the compassion of the citizen, trying to say that he loved them. And I find this to be we cannot allow this government to regain power in Trinidad and Tobago. I have seen too much disrespect, inconsideration, and very harsh decision made towards our people. I mean, from the property tax, the government giving themselves a big raise, and the amount of people that I see that is out of work. A lot of their conduct is very insulting, and I think we cannot allow this political party, whether it's led by Rowley or Stuart Young, to regain office. We have to make the best effort to remove the PNM from office. The some of the situations that our people went through outside while locked out is so traumatic that I couldn't get some of them to come here to rehash and talk about it at all, because it was mentally and psychologically traumatic to them, and it was very difficult to get some of their to come here and say what they went through. They didn't want to remember that. And I mean, we had citizens from around the world in transit trying to make it to Barbados, some did not have a US visa to exchange a flight in through New York to Trinidad. And the amount of things that I had to deal with, that I had no idea what I was getting myself into, didn't expect it to go to that extreme. I could not reason with the government. I fought them very hard. We didn't go in front of any embassy and protest like some people suggested, but I fought them on social media. I contacted the Prime Minister's office. I contacted various arms of the government. But Xiaochang had full control, and no one could not have made any decision without him. And I mean, he threatened citizens that if they go on social media and complain, they would have to wait longer and for an exemption. Just imagine you required an exemption to enter your own country. Some of you came out for a 2 weeks vacation with a little bit of money. You couldn't get enough US to leave the country, and you ended up staying out here a year and a half. I dealt with people who came for a 2 weeks vacation and stayed outside for a year and a half. We had to find out of our WhatsApp group, TNT Citizen Overseas. Everybody had pitched in, wholeheartedly to assist those who were stranded outside. We all helped each other. None of us were any rich businessmen or anything like that. We had people in the various jobs that was traveling back and forth. We had people outside here for vacation. We had students. We ended up having to deal with the students in Barbados who would finish classes and would usually go home for that break period, or they graduated and couldn't leave Barbados, and then they ended up getting hit with that volcanic eruption in St. Vincent. That was very difficult for our students in Barbados, with all the ash and dust and everything that came there. So we had to facilitate our students stuck in Barbados with food and whatever items we could have helped with. Some of them needed medication, negotiating with the government, the Prime Minister office. By the time Amy Brown came into the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs, uh, he did try to work with me, but he was shut down by this guy called Stuart Young. Full power to Stuart Young, all the decisions to Stuart Young. No minister can intervene or say anything. And as much as Amy did try to help me, well, I had some very good collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because we were persistent, and they started to collaborate. We got some help from the Prime Minister's office with the employees there. Some of them got into trouble for collaborating with me. They want to know who is me, why you collaborating with him. I mean, I'm really nobody out here. I was just an ordinary citizen that saw my people in distress and stood up for them, And I just want to raise your consciousness of what took place outside here. Um, we, our people could not get help from the consulates. They could not get help from the foreign missions in any part of the world. They closed the door. They didn't stop answering the phone. They couldn't help them. I had many clashes with the ones in New York and Miami because our people were crying out and they were not available. So I found myself being available night and day, whether I was at work or wherever, at home, in the bed, wherever I was, being contacted by people who were stranded across the world. And the thing about it is that I have all those communications, whether it's WhatsApp, email, of people seeking help, describing the level of distress that they were facing. A lot of people went homeless in foreign countries, and a lot of people had to do things they would not normally do to survive out there, things that they are very ashamed of. And, that's why we can get a lot of them to come here to say what took place. But I'm going to try to keep this session ongoing this week in reference to the border closure. I will have more people going forward as I'm able to get people who are willing to come and tell their side of the story. But if we have anyone that is listening to us who would like to join the conversation tonight or in any other time and say what happened to them, you can do it anonymously, off camera. You don't have to put your name. And this we want the world and the population in Trinidad and Tobago to know what took place, what you went through outside while you were locked out by this Minister of National Security called Stuart Young. Stuart Young went as far as threatening our citizens about complaining. He lied about how many people out here. Many times he got caught. We had to mount social media campaign, uh, against what they were doing. I had some assistance with some friends out here that are not here with me tonight, and that was on another radio station that they helped to build a campaign on what the government was doing to our citizens. So there was a lot to be done. But if anyone has any questions in the listening audience, they can message, and I could probably answer what you have. Try to get the answer for you. So, is there any questions from anyone that is listening to us tonight? You can put that message in the chat. I want to welcome Marcel, um, Semina here, Tulsi, Narissa, Brunan from New York. Brunan, if you want to join the conversation, also let me know, and we can bring you in. But pretty much that's what's really taking place. So I just wanted to raise the consciousness of uh, what we have dealt with this guy called Stuart Young, and not forgetting what he did to the divers that was stuck in a pipeline. We could do a whole other session on that, but that's something that came to mind, and I just wanted to mention this. There was ample hours for Mr. Young to assist these people. They was alive for almost 36 hours, and that was more than enough time to assist them. We had people on hand that was obstructed, you know, obstructed. I'll try to fix that 1 second. Was obstructed by who was on site to assist the divers, people that was very skilled, and they were obstructed by the Coast Guard via instructions from Paria, and we want to know how Paria got that authority to do so, and they basically are responsible for the lives of those citizens uh, that died there. We had citizens that died in transit trying to get home. We had people who couldn't get back to their family. I remember lots were trying to make it to the funeral. I had one young lady that that her mother. Are you guys hearing me better now? Just let me know if you hear me better now. That her mother died, uh, and I was able to get her an exemption, and she made it into quarantine, and they said they will allow her to go to the funeral and come back into quarantine. They promised they would try to get an escort, and that never happened. There's so much things to rehash with that this man called Stuart Young did, and this government did to our people. So I am calling on our listening audience that we need to vote with a vengeance against this government. Um, I see Sharon. Sharon, I sent you a link to join the chat in coming directly. Uh, Mr. Ambrose, you can go to hell. All right, you can go to hell. Um, yes. So seeing the level of distress that was caused by this government upon our people, and still you see people supporting this because of whatever reason. Hold on a second. I have one more person here. I'm going to try to add to the conversation. Mr. Arjun, welcome. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, Gary, thanks a lot. Sorry to be so late.
That's okay. We started late, like 9 o'clock. So some of the people, I had this young lady who assisted me in Barbados. She was like my right hand down there, and she has a young baby, so she could not join us tonight. But I'm trying to break into the population here and our listening audience what really took place with our people and the difficulties they had and the decision making by this wannabe prime minister now who was Minister of National Security.
Yes.
So I mean it's and yet you have people who jump on this chat and stand up and support PNM, not taking into consideration the level of things that this government did and the heartlessness. Up to now, you have seen a level of heartlessness towards our people. Arjun, if you have anything to say at this point, you feel free to join in. Trying to gather some information here,
Yeah, yeah.
as your
No,
experience.
I mean, Gary, it it is mind-boggling. While it was happening, it was difficult for us to understand how a government can be so, so heartless to their own citizens. I mean, when the incident happened, for example, with the people who would turn back and had to stay in Barbados,
Yeah,
you saw Mia Motley extending a kind of friendliness and graciousness to the Trinidad and Tobago residents when our own government just slammed the door in their face. Now, if they were a risk to Trinidad and Tobago, why won't they? And they were using a term called super spreaders. I remember the Prime Minister saying, I mean, he cannot say, for example, with any certainty that one of those persons would be a super spreader. All right. But there were all of those concerns about people bringing in, and he was saying, a lot of them are coming in from parts of the United States, particularly Florida, where there was an outbreak of significant proportions. And he was saying all it would take is one person from one of those areas to become a super spreader in Trinidad. But my question would have been, but all the protocols were in place when they arrive in Trinidad to be received at the airport and taken to places of quarantine. So that argument really holds no water. But if they were high risk to Trinidad and Tobago, won't they also high risk to Barbados, which is an even smaller country with a higher population density than Trinidad? As we all know, Barbados is one of the most high density populations in the Caribbean. And the Bajans were willing to accept them. And Trinidad and Tobago slammed the door in their face. And
you
that's
know,
just one example.
Yeah, I told the government, right? I said, I tried to told them that I tried to tell them the certain things decision they were making, and I tried to advise them. I said, listen, we can utilize these secondary schools as temporary quarantine locations. We had a lot of schools that was available. I mean, border everything was shut down, and it would have been you know easier for people to support our people home in quarantine there than having to find US to send money overseas and the level of difficulty they were causing. So if they were in Trinidad in a quarantine area, it would have been a lot easier for them to support their family and drop stuff for them there. Now they
Exactly.
put them in a situation here where they had to find US. I mean, there's so many things, but I'm going to bring it on as we go on this week because I intend to keep this whole week, as I try to get more people to
Yeah,
come on here.
but
Go ahead.
even though the government promised monetary and financial assistance to people who were in dire situations abroad, the question is how many people
But
actually
that
received help.
only came, I dealt with that, and that only came because I made some noise and get on with them.
And very late in the day after
Yeah.
people, a lot of people, and I have personal friends who were literally thrown out because there is only so long somebody can accommodate you in their own house. It's
But
only
you know what
so
they want?
long.
You know what they want? They wanted you to just remember you had to find Wi-Fi, you had to find an internet and computer to apply for the grant.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you begging for a lodging, you could barely get Wi-Fi. Some people were trying to get Wi-Fi. I remember in the UK,
They
like trying
they
to steal
made
all
it
the Wi-Fi somewhere.
difficult. They
Yeah,
just simply made it difficult and frustrated people to every extent. There are some people who found it so difficult to meet the requirements that they just gave up. And they were at the mercy of these systems in America. People will literally start in other countries as well. Even, as you very well know, we had people as far away as India and
India,
all over the
Dubai.
world.
I mean, there are a lot of people who were also working temporarily, and they were coming back and forth, home. And I see somebody I recognize here that I dealt with also here. Welcome, Darren. Yes. So the listen, I had people, like I say, I had people. I don't know, you catch the conversation earlier. I had people that was in the Middle East, and they went to some European country, and they were trying to make it here, then they forced them. They had to come to the U.S., and they didn't have a visa to go to the U.S. to come
To
down.
come
They had to go
home.
all the way back to the Middle East. That was one of the guy. I have the written communication between me and these people. So
Right.
they can't deny the fact that what took place. But
And then we also know of people who left all over the world and got as far as Caribbean islands, Barbados, St. Lucia, and other places, and could not get home.
I had to pay for a young lady. I She made it to St. Lucia, and she couldn't go to Barbados. We had some accommodation in Barbados, and she made it to St. Lucia. Now I thought you would pay the hotel at the end of the leave. The hotel wanted the money up front now. I had
Right.
to go and borrow money. I had to borrow money from a friend in Canada and take what cash I had here and put it together, because we started a GoFundMe, but the money wasn't coming in time.
Yeah.
So I had to pay the hotel up front. I had to pay for taxi. In some places, I had to top up some people's phone. In some places, we had to help with food, and all these things. I mean, there's so many things that took place. I had
And you
one
know what
guy.
is and Gary, was the irony of all of this? I heard the Minister of Finance a couple of days ago beating his chest
Mhm.
and boasting about how they managed the whole COVID-19. I
Manage
mean,
what?
boasting about it as if it is some feather in his cap. But the very fact that if one Trinidadian was slammed outside of Trinidad and Tobago, that to me is a massive failure.
I mean, there is so much incidents that took place that cost even the lives of some of our citizens. But to leave our citizens outside in danger, in where a situation we are experiencing a world pandemic, where their very lives could have been threatened. The longer, I told the government, I said, the longer you leave these people out there, is greater the threat. Now, all they locked down the border, and in the meantime, illegal immigrants were flowing across our border, back and forth.
But
Uh,
Gary, the worst part of it for me, and you talking about, yes, the borders were open and illegal people were coming in and out. But in the midst of the pandemic and the lockdown, Gary, we had CPL cricket in Trinidad.
exactly,
We
exactly.
were allowing a bunch of people from all over the place to come into Trinidad to play CPL cricket while our own residents were locked out. For God's sake, how could you ever justify something as stupid as that? CPL cricket, man, listen, we could dispense of CPL cricket for a year. What is the problem? And you could find it in your heart to put together all the protocols to bring these people in, quarantine them, keep them in a bubble, and you can't bring back your own citizens. If there's one reason not to support this government, it would be the fact that they allowed CPL in a lockdown when our citizens were shut out of their own homeland.
And
If you
totally
want
heartless.
one reason to vote this government out, and the person who was directly involved, Mr. Stuart Young, he was the Minister of National Security. If you want one reason to slam the door in his face, it would be CPL cricket during the lockdown.
You know, it's amazing to know how people could support the decision of this government on what they're doing. And one saying here that help better late than never. They have the idea. Mr. Ambrose could come here and brag about better late than never, but he had no idea. What did he do to help our people that was stranded outside, suffering for food? Some of them had to do things that they would not normally do to survive outside here, right? And come to talk about better late than never. You know, I mean, I had men that cried like babies here. I had women and their children stranded outside in the country and begging. And Mr. Ambrose could come and talk rubbish in this group here about.
Because they did not experience the pain that hundreds of our citizens were experiencing. So they could come now and flippantly make those kinds of silly excuses for the government and the minister. But those who were in the kitchen were the ones feeling the heat.
I mean, you of all person know that a night and day I was dealing with this situation. You know, I mean, it was not easy. I mean, to hear people crying, women crying, some people have no food. You know, in this situation put me in a contact with a lot of people of different stature in life. You know, very high level who was stuck outside the country. We had people from the Ministry of National Security. We had military people. We had police officers. We had doctors, engineers. I mean, you name all kind of people uh, outside the country that became in contact with. And some, like I spoke to one young lady today, and she is so traumatized by the situation that she don't want to even talk about it.
To relive it. And
She
I
don't
could
want.
understand that. I
That's
could
one of the things
understand
I'm
that.
going through. You
I
know,
could understand that.
I
Those
could pull up.
memories are too painful for people to relive them. I could understand that.
And how many times they have to beg for help.
Yeah.
You know,
And
beg.
nobody was listening. Nobody was listening. And the prime minister was saying, well, if they start bringing back people home on medical grounds, then everybody will suddenly become sick, and all kinds of foolishness to justify kicking all people out.
Yeah, I was looking back at Stuart Young message there, and he was talking like you needed to have a nurse for every person that came home. You know, you would only send a medical representative if somebody got sick. You did the testing and you put them in quarantine, and that's why I said create some temporary quarantine center with the school system. And they were moving. I had many fights with them. They were moving like at their own leisure, like they had time on their hand, and everything was good and fine and dandy. In the meantime, people, we had some situations. Some people tell the truth, their own relatives put them on.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah. But Gary, we know of instances where people died while being locked out of Trinidad.
yeah,
Families were split up.
yeah.
People were locked out for so long that people lost their parents abroad. They couldn't come home. They
We
died while being locked out. We
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 had
know of we know of those cases.
I had one situation. It was a flight that the person became ill on the plane, like they suffered a heart attack, and they asked Puerto Rico if they could land, and Puerto Rico didn't want to accept them there. And I mean, there was like a real riot on the plane. That people was making noise. This man died on the plane. They landed. They had them there for hours. I had
Yeah,
one reverend from Trinidad. He sent me the pictures. What was taking place there. And it's this. I mean, for this information has to be brought forward so that our people can really understand what took place. And there are people in the country who believe, like I spoke to one girl today. She said she's very hesitant because people back home believe that there was a threat to them. The government had people so convinced that the people coming back were all infected with COVID. And
listen. If our prime minister, our former prime minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, has one asset, he can be very convincing with his words. And some of the things he was saying were very, very convincing. And it is easy for people who can't think for themselves to believe what he was saying. But the point remains, if the people were coming in here from a country where obviously there were cases, you bring them in here under the same protocol and you quarantine them for however long you wish to quarantine them and then let them back into society. So there is really no excuse for locking people out.
But you just
And at
imagine
the same time, and we both know, at the same time, privileged people were allowed to come into the country.
well, I know some people get a private jet to come
We
into the
know many
election.
instances of people who came in on private jets. So what, they won't risk to the country?
Well,
All
you know,
because they had friends and relatives in high places that made them special and therefore they were allowed back into the country under special circumstances?
I have emails in front of me here where how many times people wrote for an exemption to come back to your own country, number one. Okay. And how many times they wrote, and they were claiming they was not getting any acknowledgement. So then I came up with a strategy. I said, include me in the email. And because national security was claiming they never got the email, I said, and I give them a few people, including the minister. I started including the prime minister office, and at one point we started including Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to kind of make the situation be known, and so that they could not deny the fact of what was taking place. So all that communication is within my position and possession right here now. That the level of amount of time, some people had to write over 10 times. Some people, I mean, it took a year and a half for them to get an exemption who just came out of the country for 2 weeks. Can't get
Yep.
US dollars, right?
Yep.
And then you came out here with small amount of money and the money done. And like I said, some things I don't even want to talk about what I heard our people had to do to survive out here.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. I
and
know
and
this. I know we both know this family where the parents went up to the US to bury a child that had died. The
right,
daughter
right, right.
died,
I remember that one. Yeah,
and the parents went up to bury the daughter. And the day before they were supposed to return, the borders closed. And during the period of lockout, the father died.
right,
The father died, never got a chance to return home
right.
because of the length of the lockout. And this is the kind of separation that they caused upon people unnecessarily.
And the level of stress
Unnecessarily.
they cause on the people. That killed some people. That level of stress killed some people. You know, and this government has to take responsibility. For what they did. I had a few people who was going to write on this. Just imagine. Speaking of writing, just the press wasn't saying anything about this whole situation almost a whole year into the situation.
Yeah, they couldn't
No,
be bothered.
nothing.
The
And,
mainstream press couldn't be bothered.
and I
I
brought
mean,
some members
there were one or two stories to be fair to them, one or two stories,
down to the
but
end, like
but
down somewhere
yeah,
down by
but
September, somewhere there.
yeah, but by and large, the mainstream press we know where their biases are, and that was not an issue for them. That was not an issue at all. But we really, really, really missed the mark on that one, and all it took was a little bit of will to do it and to set up the systems in place to bring our people back. That was all. We have our own national airline. We didn't have to depend on anybody,
That
right?
was another issue.
We could have sent aircrafts to pick up our people wherever they were and bring them back here, set up the quarantine centers and keep people quarantined. We could have done that in the space of a month or two.
And
The US did it.
quarantine only
The US
requires
did it.
2 weeks.
Barry, the US sent planes here to pick up their citizens and take them back
Yes,
to the US.
yes.
You know that, right?
But then
Why couldn't we
Caribbean
do the
Airlines
same
jack
thing?
up the price. We own Caribbean Airlines, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Caribbean Airlines jack up the price. Now you tell me about that. There was a higher level of funding that required, to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
You know,
All of those things should have been part of the whole management, the COVID management. And yet this government wants to beat their chest and say how well they performed in COVID. And I don't know what really is the measurement, because if you take deaths per capita, we don't look good at all. So on what grounds are you beating your chest and saying you perform so well? I really don't know. We locked out. Our schools were closed longer than anybody else in the world. You know that.
Yeah, yeah. And the same laptop he didn't want the students, he took away from the student, that Kamala was giving the students, became absolutely necessary when they
Yeah.
decided to do, the online schooling. I mean, all of that, um, was, is what backfired on us, you know.
Well, you saw it when schools eventually reopened. When they reluctantly reopened after the whole world had reopened, we finally reopened, and then all hell broke loose in our school system. And it's simply because those children were not being kept in the loop because they had no access to computers and whatever else. And that whole year was wasted, basically. And you saw the violence that broke out in school when schools eventually reopened.
Yeah, because the children was stifled.
There's no
Yeah,
rocket science, in any of this, No rocket
yeah,
science. It's easy. Anybody could have predicted what was going to happen.
yeah. In fact, I heard a lot of students was never able to be caught up with the schoolwork.
Well, you should talk to some teachers, and I have very close friends who are teachers, and they would tell you what they went through during that period, trying to keep classes online, and yet we went on and on, months and months and months into the lockdown before schools were reopened. The craziest part about that is the virus was not affecting young children. It was not spreading among children. And that's a global fact. Yet still we saw it to open everything and open schools last. What was the science behind that?
Suffocating people caused most people, and then there was the procurement of the drugs necessary to fight this COVID. We lapsed on that pretty much too. I mean, so that's one of the issues. That they didn't procure the proper drugs, and the other thing was bragging and boasting. I mean, there's some issues I heard about the vaccines. I don't know if it was bad vaccines or what the issue is. I'm not sure, but that will come to light. Eventually, soon as we have a UNC government in place
Yeah,
there.
I think the incumbent government must launch a full-scale investigation into what transpired with the management of COVID. Nothing less is required for us as a country. The country should know exactly what transpired in the management of COVID. We need to put that to rest.
Trying to get one young lady here to join, but somehow she's clicking on the wrong link. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of this information, there's a lot of investigation that we have to do.
But I think we really need to get firsthand from the people who suffered. When we know by being involved, talking to various people and so on. But the actual people who lived it outside there, I think they need to come and tell their stories,
I
because
reached out to a few, and
yeah, I know
they,
it would be difficult. I
yeah,
know
they
it would be
can't they
difficult
can't
for a lot
mentally
of
and
people.
psychologically handle it.
Yeah,
Some
I
of them,
understand that. I really
yeah.
understand that. And if people don't want to relive that experience, I will sympathize with them. But for those who are willing to share what they went through, give us first-hand accounts. I mean, we know, but the general public need to know what exactly people suffered outside there and how difficult it was to communicate with your own government, your own people, your own ministry.
And that is how I had to step up, because they was not getting any response. They was not getting any response, and that's how the whole strategy came about include me in the email. But I have already discussed this, and I will rehash this with the Mrs. Visesa, in putting things in place with our foreign missions. You see what happened? Our foreign missions fell down on the job too. They neglected our people, and some of them were so confused they didn't know what to do. So I found myself functioning like a unappointed ambassador, basically. because
I don't even want to talk about our foreign missions. I mean,
yes, you
our
know,
our embassy in the UK is supposed to be one of the top um, foreign missions in the world.
they were the
UK.
worst in the situation. They were the
And
worst.
I could relate to you personal experiences that I had with the embassy in London. And I mean, it's just pathetic. You have to ask yourself, what do these people do? What do they get paid to do? I was traveling on an official passport, not my private passport, an official passport, going abroad to represent Trinidad and Tobago, traveling on an official passport. And when I arrived at the embassy in London, who was supposed to have me assisted in securing a visa to go onwards, all the documents were sent ahead to the embassy in London and they did nothing. Zilch, nada. When I arrived there, they literally called a taxi for me, put me in a taxi and sent me to the foreign embassy to secure my own visa. That is the extent of the pathetic response we get from our embassies. And I'm talking about the UK, the Trinidad embassy in London.
I
It's
never
supposed to be
expected
one
that.
of the
I
best.
really didn't understand that until I actually dealt with this COVID, with this border lockdown
They
situation.
do
People,
nothing to help us citizens. They do nothing.
they locked the doors.
Nothing.
They locked the doors.
Nothing.
In fact, there was one situation in Jamaica where I had one young lady there. Unfortunately, we had some students that was studying there that came on board just before I got in contact with them. They assisted me. But the foreign mission, what we have there, the consulate over there in Jamaica, um, you know, they wanted we raised some money for this lady real quick, right? Because she had no food and stuff. They wanted to charge the lady for her extended stay over there, and the embassy, our consul did nothing to assist.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. And they'll
Nothing
tell
to
you they
assist.
have no, what they'll tell you is they have no resources. That's what they'll tell you. They're understaffed and they have no resources.
This young lady had two kids with her, two kids with her, and we were scrambling to get money for her to buy food, and they want to charge her out of that money to pay for her extended time in Jamaica.
And you also have to remember those people who got caught in temperate countries when winter came.
Yeah, with no coat.
They needed extra a brand new wardrobe on the limited funds that they had left. When winter came,
Yeah.
nobody was worried about these people
And we
and
were
how they're
scrambling here
surviving.
to supply them.
Right?
Fortunately, we had a few,
And
Trinidadians that stepped up.
yeah, and that's why I say I'm really wanting to hear the first-hand experiences of the people. I know the stories, but I wish that many more people could know what these people experience outside there.
Yeah, I'm going to try keeping this on. I'm going to try maybe tomorrow night. I'll get a young lady who was assisting me in Barbados. I had one lady who was pregnant that I know of, and she almost had the baby in Barbados there. So Mia Motley assisted us with the humanitarian side, but what I was trying to get done in Barbados, we needed a temporary consulate general office, like at least a one room thing to facilitate our
Yeah,
citizens because
somebody to coordinate everything
yeah, from
on
the
our
Ministry of
behalf.
Foreign Affairs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I gave
yeah,
all this information to the government and what was needed, and it just went over their shoulder, like a wind.
yeah,
There was not Short Young was not taking any advice. Ministry of Foreign Affairs were under subjection of Short Young, so they were kind of limited how much they could do. Even though they put up a fight, they help us quite a bit because they were relaying information, email about citizens who were applying for exemptions, and they started assisting me by forwarding the email and including me on the communication about the citizens who were not getting any response stuck in various countries. So that the staff at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I do thank, and also I thank Amy Brown for trying to assist me. But this Church young guy, I tell you, this guy was heartless, wicked, and even Dr. Rowley was totally heartless, just like him. I had a young lady was stuck for a year and a half, almost 2 years in the UK, and we were trying everything to supply her with food. You know, the group of us. You know, I was always requesting. I never begged. We grew up and we never begged nobody for nothing. We always eat what we had, and I had to beg for people in my first time in my life. Anyway, so we were supplying the young lady with food and stuff, and she was being mistreated, and she had to be relocated, and things was really bad at the time. Dr. Raleigh was going to the UK, and we gave her his number, and he's telling her to hold tight. And I'm trying to draw the reference to the fact that this young lady is hanging off a cliff by the thumb with her last finger, and you
Hold tight.
telling her to hold on.
Hold tight. And this is
Yeah,
after months.
yeah,
Yeah, this is after months
yeah, a year
of
and a half,
holding tight.
year
Yeah,
and a half. You know,
holding tight. It was just
on
pathetic. It was just heartless. We know the public servants who were involved as well. So the minister was pathetic and heartless, but there was some inside there just under him in the ministry as well who could have done better.
and I heard some stories, but I'm waiting to verify the facts. I heard some stories about
Yeah, I mean, I heard them too, and I won't repeat them because I have no evidence. But
yeah,
that is why I'm saying that
yeah,
the incumbent government should launch an investigation into what
because
transpired.
I was told some things, and when one of the guy came on my group and say, "You fooling yourself. You just have to do this and that, and you'll get to go home, or just take a boat from Venezuela and go straight across there, stopping nobody." Right?
Yeah,
So, and I was mounting a fight on social media and emailing the prime minister office and various things like that. And he told me I wasted my time. So when the first set of people went home and they got into the hotel, I don't know if it was Paria or one of them by the airport there,
yeah, they had some up at
and
the airport. Yeah,
yeah, and they see a bunch of Asian-looking people, either Chinese or Japanese, I'm not sure, and they were foreigners. And these people were moving in on our country, and they got really upset. They took some pictures and videos and show me. They said, "Look, what's going on here. These people coming and going as they want, and we stuck outside."
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, so
yeah,
so this is something Chang will have to answer.
yeah,
There's a lot that he has to answer for what he did to our people, and I'm not letting it rest because I personally dealt with the situation, as you know, night and
yeah,
day, night and day, for people crying around the world, you know, and begging me, for help. So I cannot let this situation rest and allow this government and allow this man who wants to be prime minister now to go through scot free, like
yeah,
nothing happened, and he loved everybody. So
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Without giving a proper explanation as to why our own people were treated like that.
and I try to advise them and try to bring the information to them. I wasn't. There was nothing political in this stage. I became more political when I see the level of heartlessness against our people. You know, that's the thing that really got me. Let's see here. Let's see. I've seen some conversations here with the members on the chat. You know, so Darren, your name looks familiar. You seem to be one of those people that I was advocating for. Please indicate. I think that's one of the people who was locked out outside the country. Let me see. Darren, yeah. So we have to bring all this information forward. That we can't let it rest at all. I have to. Our country has to know. There was somebody from UE who was going to write um, a report on the story. I think they was going to do a book or something. I never saw anything happen with it, but I would try to find out what's going on. So everything we did to assist our people, and Mr. Young was not. It was amazing how they arranged the flights. In fact, we had one set of students that was left behind in Barbados, and we encourage them to make a press conference, and it's so that with our support and they're making some noise that they send back a plane for those students in Barbados there, to get home. But it took a fight there too, you know. So, Darren, can you confirm if you're one of the guys out there? Your name looks very familiar. Um, let's see here. Charita. Yeah, it looks like one of the people that was stuck outside the country. Somebody else, yeah. So, so that's pretty much it, guys. Arjun, you have anything else to bring forward? We will try to
No,
get more people on board.
I'm just having an amused session here with this Ambrose Blanc, whoever he is.
Yeah, yeah,
Clearly,
yeah, yeah.
clearly he does not have a clue what our citizens endured outside there.
And
And
he not interested alone. All he supported is here to support his
well,
party.
yeah, well, he's probably drunk on some kind of Balize juice or something. But the point is, I wonder how many people he helped with $1 while they were outside there suffering at the hands of this government. I wonder how many people he helped
What I'm
personally.
going to do is I'm going to read out some of these letters during the week. I would not call any name, but I'm going to read out the description of the circumstances of some of people, uh, you know, what they went through, so that our population can get a better understanding. So when they go to the polls on April 28th, they could make a very informed decision uh, of what kind of government they want. I am working with the UNC to put the type of government that will be at the disposal to assist our people. We'll put the right things in place. I've already spoken about, putting things in place of our foreign missions. And one thing that's not going to happen under UNC government is you're going to not get locked out outside the country. The TNT Citizen Group is still open and available. I looking to do some funding with that for emergency situation, for people going forward, because every now and then you still find people that still call out for help. Um, so we do try to assist that. But I mean, we had people from China, Dubai. I mean, you name it. I've seen some emails here, with all different kind of situations and categories of things and different qualifications of people, very high level people who could not even get an exemption, could not even get any communication uh, with this government. Former Ministry of National Security people. Former
Well,
Ministry of National Security people.
we know of a senior doctor in the medical in the Ministry of Health here in Trinidad who was locked out, who should have
Um,
been home here assisting because doctors were needed left, right, and center.
I did
A
help.
medical doctor
I did help some doctors,
locked out of
and
the country.
yeah, and I made the case of how urgent it was necessary to have them there. In fact, I had one doctor. Uh, she was treated very badly in the transition. She was treated very badly in quarantine,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I was disgusted. It was so spiteful to her, and they tried to penalize anybody who spoke out.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
what's amazing is the High Court ruled against citizens who were petitioning about their situation, ruled against them. Our court system in Trinidad
Yeah.
ruled against them.
Yep.
I just coming across one young lady who was having a nervous breakdown. I just saw her here, stuck in one of those islands, and we were able to get her out. I had another young lady also was stuck. There was we had two situations. In fact, I had one who was a doctor. The situation caused her to have a miscarriage, right? The stress of what she was going through.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We had another lady. was stuck in, I believe, one of those islands. So she had an actual miscarriage in the airport. The situation is too emotional for her to come forward and talk about it. She can't, it's just like she couldn't handle the rehashing the memories of it. So definitely, we intend to keep this campaign going on to bring the information to our population and for them to understand what took place. So we need a government that, in case of an emergency situation, they must have things in place. They must be able to respond appropriately. They must be able to communicate with people. They must be able to also communicate with our various NGOs group outside the country, to assist our people. The communication, the arrogance, it was very difficult thing, very difficult thing. We did everything from arranging flights. In fact, I got one. Um, they were telling people um, to when I'm granting you an exemption. This is the first thing. I'm granting you an exemption. The first set, and please state how your way of finding yourself home. Let them
Home.
know the
Yeah, yeah,
aircraft and stuff like
yeah,
that, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that was in the
The
first
airport,
instance.
the
So
airport is locked down, but you must tell the government how you're getting home.
yeah, okay, I'm granting you an exemption, right?
Yeah.
And please declare the aircraft. So I got a travel agent here who had a business, and he had one aircraft at the time before
Well,
all this
if
thing
your
closed
name
down.
if your name was Delcy Rodriguez, you could come in on a sanctioned plane during the lockdown,
Well,
right?
fortunately, I came across that flight that came to Trinidad on a private jet. I came across the info. I don't know what I did with it, but I have
Yeah.
the flight number and the flight manifesto somewhere.
Yeah, but
Uh,
not even the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago knew of the names of the persons who were sitting in
yeah,
his office.
yeah,
You ever hear crap?
yeah,
You ever hear that kind of crap that you could attend a meeting in the Prime Minister's office without
yeah.
your name being
And he didn't
declared?
know who was coming.
Oh,
He didn't know who
please,
was.
boy. Hey,
He didn't
listen,
know.
man. And this population will accept those things. There are people in this population who will accept those kinds of blatant lies.
It was a circus because some people had some pets. That was one of the situations we found difficult. I just coming through some emails here, and so it was a back and forth. Who should authorize the pet to fly together back with you when you left the country with your pet that was from Trinidad? And it was being bounced back between a Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of National Security, and this one was saying it was that one, and that one was saying this one, and the Ministry of Health, and it was a whole circus. I mean, I never dreamed to imagine that my country could have been so disorganized and so incompetent. And I mean, you lay out a plan of action and you had nothing to back it up. You didn't have the staffing. Did you calculate the staffing you would need to handle the situation?
But Gary, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs weren't even talking to the Ministry of National Security, and they, and
There
they
was
both
none
here,
included. And
they both
when
here
the
for
new
the
minister, when
scheme,
Emery came
right?
on board,
Yeah, yeah,
he didn't have an easy time with them.
yeah.
They let him know,
So
Seo Cheong, you had to go to Seo Cheong.
yes, Seo Cheong is the boss. Toh
Yeah,
Tiong was the Prime Minister's
everything was
right
Seo
hand.
Cheong.
Seo Cheong, yeah.
Yeah,
If he
the
say no
minister
is
of
no.
everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And he
And
bullied
that
a
is the
lot of
and that
people.
is the that is the man who has been foisted on the members of the PNM in Parliament, the 21 members there, foisted on them. And what's the result of it?
This man bullied people. He was like a real bully. He was like one of those, the dictators you see in those ancient countries.
No, but in a situation like this, right? In a situation like this, you have senior public servants, and we know the permanent secretary who was directly involved in all of this. But why was the minister having the final say on everything? He was literally micromanaging this whole process. Why? Is that the
Yeah,
job of a
he had
minister?
all his say. He had all his say.
Yeah. Is that the job of a minister? Then why do you have a ministry? There must be a separation between the administrative work of the senior public servants and the minister. That's not the role of the minister. Send the list to him after you have done everything, you have coordinated, you have provided exemptions and whatever, send everything to him for final approval if that is necessary. But he wasn't doing that. He was micromanaging the thing.
And he had
And if the
all the
minister,
say,
if the
all
minister
power.
said no, it was no.
All power. We needed a combination of ministries involved in this thing. The Ministry of Social Development supposed to be involved with this. Ministry of Transport supposed to be involved in this, in this situation here. If we were going to use the schools, the Ministry of Education should have been involved. Ministry of Housing should have been involved. So this should have been a joint venture discussion, not with one man having all power and all decision, and nobody can humanly manage a situation like this. In the first place, the Ministry of National Security was not properly staffed to handle the situation. It was too much.
Yeah.
I had one young lady out of the Ministry of National Security that we became very familiar with. And as hard as she tried, she was working night and day. I mean, beyond office hours, to assist me when she realized how difficult the situation and what was taking place. They granted an exemption for a foreign national that's married to a Trinidadian. They grant she an exemption, and when she reached Barbados, they take away the exemption. No, she went to visit her relatives up in those European countries, right? And the last flight she took came to Barbados, and they grant she the exemption, right? Even though I negotiated for her, and then she reached there, and then they decided to take away the exemption. So this lady have to go back all the way back to some of those European countries, and that is what caused. I had a big fight with them on that, and I ended up getting the exemption, but that's to kind of tell you the nonsense they were doing.
I think at that point they realized that she was married to a foreigner.
She was married to a Trini, yeah. But
Or she was the
even though
foreigner, or she was the
she was a
foreigner.
foreigner, married to a
Okay.
Trini, and she went to visit her relatives up in those European countries, and she was trying to come
Right,
back.
right.
Granted the exemption, I got her the exemption. When she reached there, they want to take it back. So I said, well, why you give it to her in the first place? She could have stayed out with her family there. So I mean, so there was a lot of tears and heartbreak, and I mean, some people died, some people parents died, they can't come for the funeral. Other people had to bury your parents. We had buddies. One situation where I think I had a buddy in New York, if I don't make a mistake. And then there was one buddy that was remaining on ice in Trinidad, waiting for the people to come. And we were going through a whole set of circus. Didn't get the right COVID tests, and there was no improper information and things like that. And they delayed them the flight. They put them off another week or two. It was all kind of
There was a
chaos.
case where a body arrived in Trinidad and had to go back because the proper documentation wasn't completed, and the body had to return to either New York or somewhere. I can't remember where it was. But yeah, real administrative bungling was happening. Right? Imagine what you put a family through when you do something like that. But who cares? Who cares?
And then we saw the situation with the cremation site. How could that be a risk when you're cremating a body?
Well,
How could that really be a risk?
the Minister of Health will answer that question. Thank God the UNC bright lawyers didn't take that sitting down. If anything, they acted a little bit too late, but that was challenged and overthrown.
Yeah, so let's see here. Why didn't the city who was not going to...
Anyway,
Yeah. So anyway,
so
I want to
so Gary, yeah, keep reaching out to those people who are directly affected, and let's see if we can get a couple people to tell their personal
actual
story.
story. Yeah. So so
Yeah,
this session will continue as much as I
yeah,
can get
yeah.
others to
And
come on and
if you have a direct line to this Ambrose guy, send him an invitation for the next one because I think he needs to hear some of the stories of people who suffered at the hands of his government.
Bring him in. Let him talk.
Well, he said he helped people, so I would love to hear of the people he helped, and give us
I
names
made
and
my
numbers so we
contribution
could.
here in New York and in Trinidad. I will now
Yeah, yeah.
broadcast to the world
So
what
get
I
some
did.
names and numbers from him of the Trinidadians that he helped, and we can get in contact with those people as well. I would
Yeah,
love them
sure.
to,
Bring it
to
on.
share
Bring
the
it on. Tell us
story.
how
Yeah,
much
bring
people
it
you
on.
help.
Bring the people on, and let's hear from them as well.
Yeah, bring the people on. So
Yeah.
you satisfy Mr. Ambrose of what the government did, right? You
Well, clearly he
satisfied.
is, and I would
You
love to hear his side of the story in terms of the
yeah
people he helped and how easy it was to get them into the country. So
yeah
then we'll know whether there was some kind of bias against you, Gary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I helped almost 600 people. I would like to know how many he helped.
So send him a direct link and let him
Yeah,
come on to the.
I opened the invitation earlier. Say if you want to say anything, please let me know.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
And let's get the information because I'd love to hear his side of the story in terms of how easy it was for him.
So I'm inviting
And
anyone in our listening audience who
yeah,
has some information, has their side of the story to tell us,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to please let us know and we will arrange for you to join the
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Ambrose, we
Yep.
extend an invitation for you to come and tell us about your side of the story. Okay? With that, I want to wish everyone a good night. Thank you for taking the time. We had a lot of people who could not join us. Some were, like I said before, too emotional. They don't want to even remember what they went through. And but we intend to keep this information and bring as much information to the general public, international community, how things was done. And I strongly believe it could have been done much better with much more consideration towards the people. It would have been much easier to support our people within the country than to have fine US for your family. I remember the drills and the amount of calls I got trying to help find US and they can't get US to support their families. In fact, sir, how many hotels in Barbados you had to pay with US dollars there.
Yeah.
That was one of the issues there with Barbados. But again, Arjun, I definitely deeply appreciate you taking the time to join us. We have some other conversations to carry on also, and I will keep you posted
Sure.
on what's taking place. All right,
Yeah.
everyone. Good night. Thank you very much for
Yeah.
joining us tonight.
Okay. Good night, all.